Hello everybody, I am Dr. Farhan Zameer, an adjunct professor and academic specialist at Biotechnica, Bangalore. For today, we would try to look into a very interesting component which would be a preamble for your research. And this is what should be done and what should not be done, especially while you're conducting your review of literature. Let's dive in. Welcome back. Now with this, for today, what we are looking into is how exactly I need to do my review of literature. Either it could be for a dissertation, or it could be my thesis, or it could be for a research proposal, or very importantly, if it is for a manuscript. So all these categories, we will look into it and then we will make sure how effectively we can do a review of literature. Now, research becomes very important, and here designing a systematic document which can define your research becomes much more important component. So here, many a times you need to actually define two major things. The first thing is, what is the research topic you are interested with? And the second thing is, who exactly is your audience? So defining these two things becomes very important. So the first thing is your topic of research, and the second thing is your audience. Now, at this point of time, you as a researcher, you're creating a bridge between the topic and your readers. Now, if this is not interesting, most of your readers will not read your published article. So just make sure this 2 points is being a primordial factor wherein you remember throughout your design of your research. Or else, many a times, if you are an amateur researcher or if you're just starting up, there are a lot of issues. Many a times, you actually lose your interest because you are actually lost in a maze. So please do not, get lost. Make it a systematic framework and try to adhere with that particular framework. Now, to understand how exactly the framework works, we need to also understand how and where I actually look for my review of literature. Now, initially, there are various components or the various databases wherein you can actually look into. Now, the first important or a classical method is you look for your books, your classical books. You go to the library, you look for your classical books, write, document it, and then, you try to reproduce it. This is the first category. Now, in the second category, what you do is you will go for a published articles, either on PubMed or on any of the Google Scholar or Science Direct, and from there you will also look into what are the research which has been done and what is the lacuna I can actually fill in with my particular research. And the third and very important component is you actually design a meta-analysis of your review or your review of literature, which will help you in designing the entire review in a much systematic way. Remember, a review of literature is a systematic document what you are trying to create, so that this creates an awareness, and this point you make sure your readers are being tempted to read your review of literature. Now, before I do this, we need to also understand how exactly electronically your review of literature is being searched. So here are certain very important key points wherein you can look for. Now, here you start with your user, and you as a researcher, you as the user there, and with the user, you look for the user interface. And remember, the computer is looking for your query in terms of keywords. So designing a given pattern becomes very important, and your keyword is a prime factor which will decide which are the literature which will actually pop up or pop in. Okay, and remember, I always tell you this, review of literature works on a beautiful mantra. This is garbage in is garbage out. So you give a garbage keyword, so garbage in the sense a non-specific keyword, and then you end up with non-specific answers. So this is an important factor every point of time you need to remember when you are doing data mining into the search engine. Now, once you understand this component, then the keyword is being many times hits on the URL, and this is where your database or your data warehouse would come into picture. And this can create an interconversion link between the data cleaning, selection, and very, very importantly, the integration of the data happens so that the database or the data warehouse or the World Wide Web or the repository of the literature database actually responds to your query sequence or your query keyword. Now, we need to always have an approach. In this particular video, I will try to give you two major approaches, and first approach is called as the inverted pyramid approach, and the second approach is called as the wine glass approach. Okay, let us look into the first approach, that is called as inverted pyramid approach. So when I look into this particular approach, you can always make sure I start with a bigger topic, I start with a broader topic, and as I go into the review of literature, I need to make sure I concise it, I come to one peak so that I am just focused on an important component of my research. Many times this is on the contrary, this is made as ulta, this has been made as reverse. So in this case, you start with a particular topic and then you go on to a pyramidal shape so that at the end, rather than one conclusion, you have multiple conclusions. I humbly request you that never do this particular mistake when you're actually doing for going for a review of literature. So normally what we do is we start with a general approach, and once we go into a very, very specific approach. So here the topic background and the supporting studies makes a very, very important. These will act as the fillers into your pyramid. So you need to always know what exactly is the background, and with that background you need to narrow down your research categories, and with that narrowing of the research categories you need to come closer to the point what you need to express. So this is how the structure of the review of literature normally exists. Now, to understand the structure, there are various kinds of literature reviews which could be done. Either this is called a data mining or the kind of literature mining which could be done. Let us try to understand four major types of review of literature. Now, either I am doing a review of literature either for a dissertation or for my PhD thesis. So here comes a different kind of a review of literature which has been required. Or else I am doing a review of literature analysis, or I am trying to do a review in terms of its meta-analysis. So imagine I want to collect data on maybe Corona or on COVID. So COVID-19 from the last 10 years or 15 years, if I want to put everything into one single bowl, I need to have a systematic approach. And for this, what I require is I need to do a meta-analysis. Or I am just a student, and in my college, they have asked me to, give me a reflection note on a given topic. So then the kind of review of literature what I present is entirely different. And very, very importantly, when I'm going to write a manuscript, especially for a journal or for a publication, example could be an Elsevier, could be Springer, could be Wiley. So under this condition, depending on the requirement of the publisher, depending on the instruction for authors of the journal, I need to make sure I structure my review as per the requirement of the journal and not on my individual choice. So with this, I was also trying to make you understand the second model, and the second model is the wine glass approach. So this wine glass approach is an approach which has been followed by most of the journals, wherein it has an IMRAD, that is introduction, methodology, results, and discussion, which actually defines the entire structure of the manuscript. But however, when you are doing a review of literature, you need to remember that review of literature can come into three major categories. The first category is you're talking about the background or the introduction of the work, wherein this review of literature can help in supporting your argument or the rationale or the logic of your study. And the second component is in your materials and methods, wherein you're trying to tell that, look, somebody has already done this, but however, I am using his methodology with a modified version. I am trying to do something else. So you're still taking up a platform, and from that platform, you're trying to elude your own, your own experimental model. So this is the second component, and the very important component wherein you need to do a thorough review of literature is to support your results and discussion. Now here, you need to always tell if you have something which is called as a true value, how is your result deviating into an hyper system or into an hypo system, which can either be concise to the already available data, or how exactly it is deflecting. So the convergence or the deflection could be, cited into your very important component, that is the result and discussion component. Now, to do this, we have 6 major steps which have been explained in this particular video. So make sure you follow all these 6 steps for an effective review of literature. Now, the first step is to choose a topic. So when you choose a topic, make sure you find that sweet spot wherein everybody are being tempted and interested to read your literature. So it becomes very, very important that your focus and the exploration of your particular research can help the readers to understand the already existing topic in a much better way. Once you know your topic and once you know your audience, the next thing is, where do you need to search? You need to search it in a very scholarly, informative repository. Just make sure the sources which you are using for your review of literature is authenticated sources. Example, many a times there are certain websites which would put up some data and like newspaper data, and always remember, newspaper data could be just an information but cannot be scientifically quoted. So always remember, you need to have either statistics from the WHO, or you need to have statistics from the authenticated sources which you are using for your review of literature. So sources and information should be from your scholarly article, which becomes an important criteria. Now, the step number 3 is, once you have collected the entire data, you need to analyze what exactly is your framework. Because once you start writing, it becomes very, very difficult, and many a times you actually get deviated or deflected from the topic of interest. So just make sure you put up a framework at any point of time in your review of literature. You make sure that you're not getting out of that particular topic, and hence analyzing your network, designing a framework, and especially selection of words will make your review of literature much more effective. Now, the 4th step is, you need to describe and summarize your review, as per the background information which is already available onto the database. So this also is a key information wherein you are trying to tell, this is a point which I want to tell you, but however, on the background, somebody is trying to propose their hypothesis with this kind of an idea, and this is how I can create the novelty and bridge the lacunae, so that we can have a much better results or a better intervention. So this is the 4th step. Now, in the 5th step, you need to demonstrate how your concept, because you already said that there is some novelty which has been existing. So at this point of time, you need to always make sure how exactly your concept of research could be established, and what is the point what you are trying to make. And here comes the golden thread. So finally, you need to identify the relationship between the key players in your framework, which are actually knitting the entire story, and how do you connect the already existing literature with the literature of yours, point number 1. And then if your literature is not available, then how do you establish your hypothesis based on the already previous work which has been available onto the database. So now this becomes a golden thread mantra, so that you knit the entire story. Finally, your readers or your publishers are able to read it. Now, these are the 6 major steps wherein you need to follow. Now, many times the most frequently asked questions is, sir, how big should be my review? Many times, it depends on whether you are writing a comprehensive review, or whether you are writing a short review, or you are trying to write a commentary or a letter to an editor. So it becomes important, and I would give you one suggestion with my experience, saying that just to follow the instruction of authors, because every journal, every publisher, they have their own kind of styling, there's their own kind of page setting, and depending on the requirement of a special issue or a special edition, there are certain rules and regulations which have been laid down, and you need to just follow them without your own interventions. Now, finally, the gist of the story, to do an effective review of literature is make sure you have your topic and audience, well defined, and read as many as literature which has been, available, and make sure you do not create, a lethargy, or you say, okay, I have read enough, this 30 articles or this 20 articles are just sufficient, and then let me write, a comprehensive review. This is a big no-no. So just make sure you read enough, and as far as possible, make it a point that you read the most advanced literature so that you do not claim any pseudo-positives or pseudo-negative data. Then very, very important is focus on the current issues, focus on the current sources, because every day, every minute, every hour, science is getting upgraded, and we need to be very sure that whatever I am claiming, okay, I have a background to it, and then this is not a pseudo condition or a fictitious condition. This is what I want to hypothesize. This is my framework, and this actually works, and nobody has looked into it, and it is me who is trying to prove this particular concept. So for your advantage, make sure you quote authenticated and the current resources. And as very, very important, what I see in most of the students, into the current scenario is we have forgotten to write. Okay, many a times we do not take notes, and whatever I read it onto the computer, either I highlight it and then I leave it. Please remember, out of sight is out of mind. So make sure you always pen down that one important point, what you have read through your literature, and once you put it onto the paper, this actually plays a very, very important role. It actually acts as an SOP for designing your review of literature. So please do not forget, because when you're writing, you're actually embossing it into your head, and automatically when you're designing or when you're typing your manuscript, it becomes very, very easy to recapitulate it, and then you can reproduce it in a much better way. So this is a short video to make you understand what are the important components for a review of literature, what has to be done and what should not be done during a review of literature. So just make sure you write a very, very strong review with a strong framework and a strong hypothesis, so that your reader, your publisher, all the authors are happy. And by any point of time, if you like these kind of videos, please let us know into the comment, so that we can create more videos for you, so that you can become the budding researchers for the future. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. All the very best.